I see what this video looks like, I come over to you, I see it. I'm off, everybody.
Hey everybody, I'm here with Johnny Likens, our UI designer. Johnny, would you like to introduce yourself to everybody?
I'm John Likens. I'm a UI designer, and I've been brought onto the project to head up all the design and UI elements inside the ships that you'll be interacting with when you're playing the game.
Can you tell us how you came to Cloud Imperium Games?
So my background is in film and television, and I got a call from Travis, who was referred to me from my work on Iron Man 3, where I did a bunch of the HUD design and UI work in that film. And it was at that point he explained to me what Star Citizen is all about, and how the work that I was doing in the film world, you know, could directly be applied to what's happening in the game world.
So you work with Zane and a bunch of the other guys in the office. What is the workflow that you work on for the HUD specifically?
So when I start a project like this, I think it's really important to become quite familiar with whatever it is that you're designing the interface graphics for. For example, the Hornet, you know, I'm creating the HUD and all the interface sort of design elements for it, and I believe that, you know, it should be cohesive and feel like it's part of the same system. You know, the design aesthetic of the ship should be reflected in the UI. I started out by just sort of flying around the ship, getting a sense for some of the design work and the line work that's already been built into the ship. You know, just taking notes from some of the forms and shapes that have already been created for this particular asset. From there, I'll just do a lot of sketches, and I'll be very loose and very fast-paced with sort of getting a lot of ideas out on paper, and then I'll just like loosely either scan in those sketches from the book, or I'll just come in here and draw, you know, freehand on top of the plate. vectorize it and make everything clean and nice, and work with a grid and do all my typeface exploration in Illustrator and solidify all those ideas that were executed in the sketching process.
It's different just because in film, you know, all the UI and stuff, it's all just fake, and we get to sort of, you know, make it up as you go. But in the game environment, all these things have to have a purpose, and they have to have meaning, and they have to sort of, you know, function as an aid to the player.
So I worked on the design for about a week and a half, and then worked on the animation for a few days, and that's kind of brought us to where we're at. But there's also been a lot that's kind of gone into it just to get to this point. For example, if you see this reticle, it's an actual 3D object. And so taking that vector design that you saw over here, knowing that we wanted to fly in and be three-dimensional and then eventually end up looking like this, taking that design that I created, that 2D vector art in Illustrator, I can then bring it into Cinema 4D and extrude all the pieces and place them in their own depth and animate them accordingly, and then I'll be able to export that out for the developers to work it into the game.
So what Johnny's focus is in this whole workflow is to come up with a high-level visual concept of the HUD, which includes the animation of the boot-up sequence and also sort of like the damage states and how that sort of animates. And what my focus is in this workflow is to take that and then animate it so that it gets translated into an in-game asset, which I can then hand over to Brandon.
Zane hands that flash file off to me, and I plug it into the engine and make sure that the C++ code is interfacing with it properly.
So the cool thing about how we're developing this game is that we're releasing it piece by piece. And so for this first dogfighting module, the work that we're doing on this HUD, we'll be able to put it out there to the players and get feedback on that. What things could be improved, what sections of the HUD are readable or not readable, and then we'll be able to fold that feedback into future iterations of the HUD on different ships and even the Anvil HUD.
In Star Citizen, there's not a lot of abstraction in how the ships function. Everything is a real part that actually exists in the system, and all of those parts need to actually communicate with each other. So I've been doing a lot of work to make sure that there's interconnectivity between all of the various ship systems, and making sure that those have a way to communicate with all of the various output devices like the player's HUD.
So our goal is to create a really cool HUD, a really immersive experience. And one of the ways that we're doing this is to actually diversify the visual style of HUD by ship manufacturer. So right now we're sort of initially concepting the visual look and feel and design language for the Hornet, or Anvil Aerospace rather. So you'll see the same style in the Hornet and Gladiator, but later on when we actually get this workflow going and we start fleshing out more HUD designs, they're actually going to be way different. So in a trading ship like the Musashi ships, you're going to be able to expect a whole different experience because the visual language will be different.
Well, there's a lot of systems that are going to be brought into Star Citizen, and you're going to need an interface into all of those. So we're thinking about things like navigation, star maps, things like that, possibly trade interfaces. All of that is going to be done in-world. There won't be any sort of game abstract UI. So there's a lot of stuff to look forward to doing going forward.
One thing what we're doing is we're defining different color spaces that'll be applied to different things. For example, customizability of these different color spaces. So a user can take the red color space or the critical alert color space and assign a different RGB value or color to that so that it's more readable to them.
Coming from, you know, my background, not really being much of a gamer or anything, I sort of offer a fresh perspective and maybe like a new set of eyes, and I would maybe approach problems and tasks in a different way than regular designers in the game industry would, because they sort of know the limitations and they know sort of the boundaries of, you know, where they need to be working in. But for me, I don't really know anything about that, so I'm just kind of, you know, doing my thing, and then we'll work to incorporate it into a, you know, a usable state for gameplay.
set up here is we have the Gatling gun that's hooked up onto the Hornet that we're setting up for Dogfight V1. You can see the scale of the thing is just massive. So we got our test weapon mount here. So I'm getting into the chair right now, where you can actually just interact with it. It's gonna swivel out for you, and you can actually jump in. It's gonna pull you back in. And this whole thing is now like a whole firing range for you guys. So we just set this up so you can actually shoot at all these different targets. So a lot of these are all set up thanks to Forrest as well and Zane for these guys actually setting this target up real fast for us. So I got the Gatling gun, but also the best part about this whole thing is with the stuff that we have in the hangar, that whole holo table, you can actually swap out the guns. So here, check this out. So if you guys are all familiar with the holo table, you can actually pull in the weapon mount itself, and then go over to the weapons table over here. I'm going to pull over one of the other, actually the laser repeater, and I'll plug that in. And then you can see it's actually swapped the actual mount and the weapon itself on the mount. And then that'll completely switch out the actual weapon that's available. And now you can actually shoot that one too. So it completely changes the effect, changes everything. So it's just demoing off exactly like what the weapons are going to be capable. And I was using this test platform actually to test out like the Hornet